It is my honor to introduce to you our partner organization for this assembly, Stephanie Spurgeon of Domestic Violence Services of Cumberland and Perry Counties. Stephanie Spurgeon is the Direct Services Supervisor for the Domestic Violence Services of Cumberland and Perry Counties, an adjunct professor at Shippensburg University's Criminal Justice Department, and a member of the Cumberland County Commission for Women. She graduated from the University of Tennessee with a Master of Social Work degree in 2019. Stephanie has over 10 years of experience working with children, families, and individuals that have experienced trauma. She lives in Carlisle with her husband, 3 kids, dogs, and 2 wild kittens. She's an avid reader and novice gardener. Stephanie is passionate about empowering others to reach their goals, celebrating the small moments, and showing love to her community. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on a topic today that I'm deeply passionate about. No one dreams of one day fleeing an abusive relationship. No one imagines that the person they love is going to turn their world upside down, leave them in constant fear. No one envisions that their partner will threaten their life, will use their children as pawns, or hold a gun to their head. Yet far too many are experiencing this as their reality. The statistics are both staggering and heartbreaking. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and nearly half of the LGBTQ+ community will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. These statistics represent real people. They're people sitting in this room, they're people that you see in your neighborhood, people that you care about, people in your own family. So my daughter is in the room today, and she's the reason we do this work every day. I want to create a world in which she and her friends are not part of that statistic. And so I hope that as we speak this morning that you think about your children, your siblings, your friends, because domestic violence does not discriminate. It touches people of all races, genders, ethnicities. It happens behind closed doors in suburbs, rural counties, cities. Does not care about age or religion. The effects ripple through an entire community, leaving survivors to rebuild their lives while facing trauma that lingers long after the abuse has ended. The foundation of domestic violence is deeply rooted in power and control. The abusive party will go to any means to maintain that intimidation, fear, manipulation, just to establish control and maintain that over their victim. So, contrary to what many people believe, domestic violence is not just physical abuse. It manifests in ways that remain hidden from the outside world. Domestic violence can take the form of stalking, where the abuser constantly monitors the person's whereabouts, forcing them to live in a state of perpetual fear. It can involve financial control, where one party restricts access to money, leaving the other victim dependent completely on them financially. It's emotional manipulation, where that abuse erodes that person's self-confidence, making them feel worthless, isolated, and powerless. Each method reinforces the abuser's control, leaving the victim feeling as there is no escape at all possible. Leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous point for a victim. The moment when the victim decides to take the steps forward to leave, the abuser feels their control slipping out of their grasp, and that the danger will intensify. So one of the important tools that victims have at their availability are protection from abuse orders. A PFA is a component of a broader safety plan. So not a standalone solution, however, it is an essential step into ensuring the safety of the victims. So we know they can do many things. They can change their locks, they can put up alarms, they can even move. Pennsylvania has the address confidentiality program that's critical to victims when they're trying to escape another person, adding that extra layer of security. So these tools can help victims navigate the dangerous process of leaving. However, it's important to recognize that that journey is long and it's full of challenges. Every layer of protection counts when it comes to leaving an abusive relationship. In 2022, there was a staggering 40,000 temporary protection orders filed in the state of Pennsylvania. And to put that into perspective, that's about 110 protection orders a day. Each one of those orders represents an individual in crisis, somebody seeking refuge from abuse. Behind every statistic is the story of someone taking the brave step to seek out legal protection and attempt to break free of a violent or controlling relationship. I'd like to tell you the story of a woman that I met this year in February. And for confidentiality and for her safety and the safety of the other victim I'm going to share about, I have changed their names. So I met Sharon in February of 2024. Sharon called our agency with seeking help for filing a protection order against her ex-partner. From the moment I got on the phone with her, I could hear the exhaustion and defeat in her voice, and she had told me that she filed a PFA before. This is not uncommon. A lot of survivors have protection orders, then their abuser convinces them to drop the orders, their relationship is good for a little while, and then the abuse escalates. This is just a normal part of the process. But for Sharon, this wasn't the case. Sharon told me that she had a PFA in place from 2016 all the way until 2023. During that time, he had violated the order excessively, and it had been extended over 5 times. The punishment for his PFA violations were often 24 to 48 hours incarcerated and a $300 fine. She stated that most of the times, as soon as he was out of jail, he would come right back to her home and be harassing and stalking her all over again. Sharon was afraid to start the PFA process as it didn't work last time and she knew it would likely escalate his behavior, make him more angry. In fact, when the protection order expired the previous summer, she chose not to refile immediately, even though he had directly threatened her life moments after the order expired. She has every right to feel exhausted. During the 7 years that she had a protection order in place, her abuser continued to harass her. She had to remain hyper-vigilant about her safety. She spent her free time looking through security camera footage, making sure that he wasn't stalking her home. She lost jobs because employers didn't want to deal with the drama. She couldn't go on vacations with her child because paid time off goes to spending time in court waiting for her protection to be validated. A lot of times sitting at the courthouse for hours on end to then find out her court hearing had been continued to another day. So 8 months after her previous protection order had expired, she found herself filing again for another order of protection. Her ex's behaviors had escalated and began sitting outside of her home and sending her death-threatening text messages. When Sharon reported this behavior to the police officers, they dismissed it as free speech. I can't even imagine. And I think Sharon's one of the bravest people I've ever met. She went and filed a new PFA and he continued to violate it. He tracked her across the state, sent her messages and pictures showing her that he was following her. So as shocking as her story sounds, she's not alone. After I met her, I met multiple other victims with stories just like her. Right now in Cumberland County, violating a protection order most likely gets that abuser with a $300 fine and 6 months of probation. This message is telling abusers that if they can afford to be abusive, they can continue to do that. They can continue being abusive, they can continue harassing their victim. After I filed the order for Sharon that day, I went back to my office and I could not stop thinking about her, and I probably ranted to anybody that would listen to me in the building. And our executive director, Sonia Brown, who is my mentor, heard me and encouraged me, and we thought kind of outside of this case. And so the next morning, she found me and I had papers just like everywhere on my desk, and she said, you're not letting this go, are you? And we are not gonna let this go, because people deserve to feel safe. And so what I found in my very formal research, which was Googling, a lot of Googling in the middle of the night, was that in Pennsylvania, if you're charged with driving under the influence, the offenses and the consequences for that offense are significantly higher than the consequence for violating a protection order. And in fact, they escalate over time. So we started having a conversation about why are we not treating violation of protection orders, which are lethal acts against another person, potentially lethal, to the same level that we do with drinking and driving. And so after, probably about a month after I met Sharon, I met Julia, who's also a survivor. And she had a protection order also in place for about 7 years. And technically the order is between her and her husband and her brother-in-law, but it's her entire family that is going through this process. In her case, the violation of the protection order is happening hundreds of times, with stalking across their property, trespassing, and threatening their lives. Julia lives in constant fear that one day those threats will become real, and she dreads the possibility of losing her husband to this violence. Just recently, they faced their 7th official PFA violation in court. She stood firm in her conviction that this should be pursued within the court system, and in the end, the abuser received time served and a small fine, probation, and extension of her protection order for another 2 years. And these minimal consequences felt like a slap on the wrist, a temporary fix that doesn't reflect the constant, life-altering fear that her family endures. It truly doesn't have to be this way, and my research has taken me to the offices of several legislators that are present here today who we've had conversations about how we can improve the system. Other states are implementing tiered sentencing, which has escalating consequences when you violate a protection order. A $300 fine is insufficient in this matter. People are dying. According to the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence, there were 119 deaths last year linked to domestic violence. There was just a significant incident this weekend in Lancaster and Dauphin County, in which 3 individuals lost their lives. As my social work idol says, Brene Brown, I want to live in a world filled with braver and bolder leaders, and so I'm grateful to be in this room today, surrounded with those who are committed to creating real movement here. So thank you so much, and I hope you remember the stories of those victims.